Good evening, free enterprise fans around the world, and welcome to Game 2 of the match between 12 seed Kohrek and 5 seed PeasantsOMFG in this Lali-Ho bracket stage. My name is PeasantsOMFG, and I am joined by the one and only Invenerable this evening. How are you, Inven?
Doing pretty well. Excited about this match. I'm hoping to. So here in the round of 16, we have we got rid of the one game advantage. So it's best 2 out of 3 for everyone. But I'm wondering what some of these racers are going to do when their backs are against the wall here. Everyone who's made it this far has done remarkable to get here, and to know there's that one game between you and being eliminated for good. I wonder if we're going to see some cheeky routing, some big gambles. Especially here with these two boss hunts for objectives 4 and 5.
Yeah, those are two of the bosses that are on my short list of things that I do not want to ever be involved with. Valvalis and Baigen. That would be gross and grosser, especially if they have decided to take lunar vacations, where it just, makes you shudder.
Yeah, very, very nasty in so many spots. And we don't have a whole lot of fighting power coming right out the gate here with an Edward start. Kind of hoping to find early dancing daggers, maybe get, a really good bow and arrow. But if we don't get some good partnership out the gate here, this might be kind of a slow and rocky start for our runners tonight.
Yeah, it could definitely be a tricky, beginning for the runners. But runners of this caliber, there's a reason that they're in the top 16. There's a reason that both of them have made it this far. There's a reason that they perform so well in the Swiss rounds and continue to do so in bracket stages. There's not much that's going to really stump them. So I'm looking forward to the creative ways that our runners tonight are going to get through this troublesome early game with Edward and whomever decides to join him.
Absolutely, and just looking forward a little bit. We're not going to spoiler any other matches that have been going on, but whoever does win this best of 3 will be taking on the winner of Couch 23 and Aizen Tayama. So it's kind of cool. We kind of have like some of the newer guard here, people who got into the game a little later, versus two of the OG Free Enterprise runners. So old school versus new school will be coming at us. But which of these two is going to get to represent the new school? We'll be finding out between this one and the next match.
Yeah, definitely true. That it's kind of a weird dichotomy that exists in Free Enterprise, where you have a lot of the old vanilla speedrunners who really went into Free Enterprise pretty hard, and a lot of folks who have joined it, maybe never having played vanilla, certainly never having speedrun it. But speaking of things you're not going to speedrun, that's a twin harp right away, and that's a yang. That's not the power that our runners were looking for. But one really important thing I saw in there, was that a curse ring event?
I'm getting some nasty buffering, but I did get that one brief moment where I saw a curse ring in that starter kit. Not going to have to hunt those down, not going to have to spend 25,000 of the limited money on it. Although that's a pretty hefty monetary starting kit too. Was that 66,000 I saw?
Yeah, it was high 60s, which is extremely generous, being that 80 is the cap and 20 is the minimum. That's a very favorable start for our runners indeed.
And the game itself also, I did also see a Charm Claw included in that starter kit, just to tempt you into putting that on your Yang. Not my ideal starting weapon for our monk friend, but that Gaia drum here, Watery Pass, that kind of takes care of one early boss fight, more or less. And of course our runners here hoping to get some really good utility items, because these two characters aren't bringing the damage all on their own.
Yeah, that Gaia drum is really nice in my eyes, because that could get you through Hobbs. And the character on Hobbs, maybe it's a Kane or a Sid, maybe it's a Cecil with a black sword, any way to push some early damage. I do see that life staff that both runners got coming here in the Watery Pass. That life staff is not great right now, obviously, for either of these characters, but that is late game end stage equipment. That is a really good find early on.
Oh yeah, and another nice thing about it too is, we're only starting with 10 life potions on the starter kit, but with that life staff, you can supplement those quite a bit, just using it for its innate item usage in combat, and kind of reduces the shopping list by one, as long as we can find a white mage who can bother equipping it.
Yeah, I will say one fun fact about that life staff, don't try to use it to life glitch enemies. Yours truly found that out during a race the hard way in the 3-miss zone.
Ooh, yeah. Easy thing to forget, but hey, at least for your own team, you've got the in-combat life ups covered.
Yes. And it can even go on Iridia, which can be particularly nice.
Well, that is a mop in the Kaipo bed, so any Sand Ruby fan will probably see a very quick rush back to pick him up. A little good information for Kohrek. We know that won't be the character on Hobbs, of course. Fu and Edge cannot be in ungated locations.
Yeah, that Fusoya, I mean, absolutely game-breaking. You find a Sand Ruby, you're going to beeline back to Kaipo before probably doing literally anything else to get that Fu in your party. And there's that cane that I think our runners are going to be very happy to see up on Mount Hobbs.
Oh yeah, much needed early game damage, can equip a lot of heavy armor. For weaponry, Peasants appears to have the choice of Silver Sword or Wind Spear, both pretty similar, but should have the goods to get through this fight, get that Dragoon added to the team, and have a lot less fear pursuing the rest of this overworld.
Yeah, and starting with a Flame Spear on is, I believe, the best singular weapon that Kane can start with from the Sineki flag that has been added for this tournament. So that's a really nice starting kit
even
there
better
for Kane. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see the initial tap out there. I saw the items that Peasants had available, but no need to swap that out. Other fun fact is, that means Kane also gets to basically double as our Black Mage in the overworld now. The Flyer 2, the Spear cast, isn't that potent, but I don't see anyone else on this team doing area of effect or non-physical damage.
Yeah, I mean, Kick will maybe clear out some enemies in a Fabul Defense Gauntlet, but it's not going to do any sort of meaningful damage AoE-wise.
Yep. Kohrek here doing a little more shopping, but the big rewards I saw there were a free Poison Claw in the grass, pretty much the best one you can buy in the overworld for Yang, and an Elven Bow. We have some anti-mage weaponry available now for this Edward.
Yeah, that Elven Bow actually might make Edward useful. Right now, he's not doing much but filling a place in the party and acting as a very tiny meat shield with his 60 HP. But that Elven Bow could let him help out anyway, with any decent arrows, dealing that very increased quad damage to those mages. And oh hey, if you didn't see the Cursed Ring in your opening kit, have another one, courtesy of the Antlion Cave.
Yeah, not an item that you'll frequently need more than one of. Maybe with a few more heavy armor wearers, you could do something cheeky versus a Rubicante or some other enemy using a whole bunch of elemental attacks. But the second one's there really just to kind of mock our runners and be like, hey, I bet you'd like to sell this for, it's worth 0.
And I was thinking immediately might get some value out of that Flame Spear as an AoE source, but looks like just a Water Hag here in the Antlion Cave.
Well, so we've seen the Karate fight, we've seen the Water Hag fight. Because of my buffering issues, I didn't see who handed us our starting item. Did you get a good glimpse of that?
It was a boss, but I also missed it.
The reason I'm asking is because we've talked about how nasty Valvalis and Vigan are at late game spots, and every boss that we fought so far is more or less a freebie. So the more freebies we get out of the way early, the more we can hope here in the comms booth and here in the chat for just some real nasty late game fights for our runners.
And looks like it was Vanilla Vigan to kick things off. So no Lunar Vigan, but the Baron key is going to be required, and just an apple from Antlion for Peasants. Meanwhile, Kohrek was able to show us Leviathan hanging out in the Mist Cave.
Yep. So Vanilla Baigan, not very difficult. He doesn't punch all that hard at that spot, but yeah, everyone's going to be no fading Baron this seed. Provided, of course, our runners wrote that down. It's so easy to overlook who that first boss is. You're busy thinking about your team. You're thinking about what are you going to get in your starter kit. How are you going to route to make up for this relatively low power duo. We'll see if we see anyone fading a Baron key, and that could be a definite source for consternation later.
Yeah, something that I hope doesn't happen to either runner, but something I know that is kind of a rite of passage in free enterprise that, if it's something you can miss or skip over, it's been done by just about everybody at some point. So hopefully that doesn't happen to the runners. Now, I did see something interesting on Kohrek's screen in Mist Village. There was a Dwarf Axe in the shop there. That Dwarf Axe is particularly interesting for this Kayn, as it is the only weapon that is reasonably, without shenanigans, going to be able to back row him. Would you make any consideration to going back and buying that Dwarf Axe, given the money that we're starting with?
Probably not yet. If we run into a place where we know... Ooh! Hold that thought.
Oh, hi.
Okay, Peasant says, run buffer to Starvale. This fight is over. Well done. Oh! It's only one roll.
Yep,
There's still
only
more work
one
to be
roll.
done. Alright, if Kayn can get one more jump, should be fine here. It's, what, I believe 1,725 or so HP at the spot?
Well, jump the nuke, which is pretty convenient as well.
What a Kayn. What a great character to have added to the party this early.
I mean, could have gone Edward Hyde strats there, but that's not a great option.
So if this is underground access, we know it's not the logical way to get underground.
I would love to tell you... Oh, it was a rat tail. Okay, I got some buffering immediately as the item showed up. I was like, oh, great.
Twitch. Thank you, Twitch. Just so good to us today. And a dancing dagger in the tower, that'll let Eddie bring a little bit of damage here. But back to your question. You wanted to know about the Dwarf Axe. And that's the thing, I don't think I can justify it even with this starting kit. It is a lot of money, and worst case scenario, your Kayn can jump on enemies that are far away, or if he's in the back row. Maybe if we run into an especially nasty CPU, I'd consider it, but overall, I think I'm more likely to forego the Dwarf Axe on this flag set. How about you?
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. It's something that I would consider if I were to be getting underground and no other melee characters had shown up. I know that Yang is in the party, but until he gets some levels added, he's not really providing much, and he's never going to be able to do it from the back row. So maybe at that point, once we've got some extra gold as well floating around, probably would consider it then, but certainly not before then. Something handy to keep in mind, though, for Kohrek, and information Peasants may never get, depending on his route.
Oh, yeah. I will note that Peasants has spotted a Sid in the Baron Inn, so if it kind of... Well, if we didn't have the Curse String, I would be really considering it now, just because a Dwarf Axe on Sid can handle most of your early to mid-game anchoring as you need, just because he's so slow, and the -5 helps quite a bit. But Curse String, bonus Curse String that Peasants found, seems less important than it could be on some with some treasures. There we go.
Yeah, and about to be joined by a very rude Ruby here, especially when relying on, well, a fire spear, flame spear. This is not gonna be the best. Going to try to make use of a blizzard here. Doing about 800 damage. A Boreas gonna do a pretty good chunk of damage as well. That's another 2k. So only needs about 1,000 damage more here to push through this fight. And should be able to get there.
And notably here, Peasants does have a stack of bombs that if he really wants to, he could pop one of those on Ruby, and Ruby will life up the entire team for him. But not really necessary. Picks up Yang for the safety, and yeah.
Yeah, just given how slow Ruby is here. There's not really too much of a threat when Kayn is getting off 2 actions for every one that Ruby's taking. So Peasant should be through with this Dancing Dagger toss. There he goes, and he is the proud new owner of a Sid, an engineer for the team.
It's still not really a whole lot of magical power going on in this team, but that hook opens up yet another character check. Maybe we'll finally get to add a white mage to the team. We've got Eddie with his niche uses. We have the other 3 who primarily just hit things. Be nice to have something to augment that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good character hits for this team. And then there's also some that, you know, like Iridia, probably not what you'd want to see here. Porum or Rosa would be fantastic because it would be a source of Berserk for Kayn or Yang, to your point. Kind of any white mage is a good white mage. Tella would be great for this team. Fu, Edge would be great. Not too many bad hits left. You know, things like Dupe Edward, Dupe Yang probably wouldn't be too great.
So we're also going to be able to peek the boss, but there's a lot to still be done in the overworld. Still have key item checks available from the Rat Tail turn-in, from going up ordeals, of course that starting Twin Harp. So this is one of the situations where, although we got that early hook, there's a fairly decent chance that our runners end up finding a magma key as well.
Yeah, not only a magma key, but also possibly, you know, a darkness crystal floating out there somewhere. Could get extra character checks, might be able to make use of some of those tier 5 consumables that are going to show up in Eblan Cave. And, you know, could be able to do a fair bit of work there. Or could get a pass and make use of that sometime far, far down the road.
Yeah, an excellent find, and of course, it being able to skip straight to Zeromus. And that Wyvern is a little obnoxious at the bull, and a runner could very easily see it, be like, no, I'm not going to worry about that now. And if you forget it, well, pretty big time penalty in the long of it.
Oh yeah, I promise I've never forgotten about football defense for 2 hours and 12 minutes, not in the last week, nope.
I completely forgot that happened. I was not trying to sass that or anyway. My favorite thing to forget, though, is completely forget Antlion Cave on Push B to jump seeds until it's about an hour and a half later. It's like, oh, okay.
That's a really cool one because you can jump in between the back hallway right into the entrance door, if I remember right. And ooh, there's sirens. Not super helpful when you just have overworld access, but nice to find anyway.
And Peasants considering them a worthy investment, even at this point in the seed, going ahead and buying a huge stack of them.
Yeah, and I think that was that 14 total?
I thought he bought 7 plus 1, but given how low his GP total is, I think it had to have been more than that, huh? 4,000 a pop. Maybe we'll get a look at his inventory here in a moment and see if we can do some addition.
There's 1. And 8 more. Okay, so he has 9 total.
Well, that will take care of your grind in nearly any of these seeds.
Yeah, that's a good number. And I mean, worst case scenario, you can always, when up on Mount Ordeals, siren up a double Lilith fight for roughly 5,500. But we'll see if he's able to get through these Stalemen. I swear these Stalemen are the cause of more sneaky wipes than any other check in the game.
Yeah, but Peasants Kayn looking very well defended, taking typically it appears only single digit. One of them just got a fairly lucky hit, but that Kayn missing some of those Blizzard Spear strikes from the sky and not getting the kill on that first Staleman.
Yeah, and these Stalemen are speedy. They're getting off 2 to 4 attacks. And there's the sleep, and that's a bad day right there.
Yeah, unlike later Final Fantasies, sleep status does not end automatically upon receiving a physical attack in Final Fantasy IV. You're kind of down for the count for probably. I think I've done this with the Lua script running before that indicates, all the countdown timers, and it is a lot of ticks. I believe it was like 150,
Wow,
if I remember correctly. It's long.
that's worse than an Hourglass 2. That's terrible. Well, there's a paladin, but that's a questionable hook route boss. That's a Sura, and that's a huge time sink and time investment for this current party to have to deal with.
Well, there are a couple benefits going on here, though. Notably, Peasants did just pull that Aegis shield out of one of the chests there. That'll give you great mage defense, and if you turn the Cecil into a paladin that Kohrek's picking up, well, that's basically all the defense you'll need for the fight. On the offense side, Kohrek did find that Elven Bow. We've seen rune axes for sale here in Eblin Cave, so there's some pretty good anti-mage options here, but I agree, I want to see the rest of this overworld before I pursue her.
Yeah, my concern for our runners would be the fact that both of them have spent nearly their entire allotment of early goods, or early money, and that rune axe is nothing but a pipe dream at this point, unfortunately for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're down to I think 5 and 10,000 respectively. So a rune axe at 45k, while it's there, yeah, very difficult to scrounge up that amount of cash on the overworld.
Yeah. The biggest hope for affording that at this point would be what? A darkness crystal and then hourglasses for sale on the moon? Finally get your gold dragon on and afford everything that way?
Yeah, either that or, like a lunar foo or a lunar tella, just come ready with weak effectively, and maybe not do it with stop or hourglass, but be able to get through a set of them kind of more naturally, if you will.
Yeah. And that's going to be one of the nicest things about adding that Cecil to the team, just being able to use that cover command, since he can equip all the heavy armor. Do you need dragon defense? Oh, we've got armor for that. Do you need mage defense? We've got armor for that.
Yeah, basically anything you could want armor for, Cecil can do. Even without his access to things like the Excalibur sword, the Crystal sword, Cecil would still be a tier 1 grade A character, just based on what he can do defensively, as no other character does what he does. Simply put, he's fantastic just on a defensive standpoint. And then on top of that, you throw in all the shiniest, pokiest sticks in the game, and Cecil just becomes like the protagonist or something of the entire thing.
Peasant's getting a couple more notable pieces of loot here. A rune ring, if you want even more mage defense for people who can wear it, or some stat boosts for your mages, wherever they are. And a poison axe. Honestly, do not hate that at all with this team. We have so many heavy weapon users, so anyone you can get is going to be pretty handy here.
Well, and even on top of that, he has that sit now in a center slot, so that poison axe, normally it will decide whether or not it wants to hit things, but in the center slot, it actually will hit things. And he also has the black sword here for Cecil. I wonder if we'll get some swoon procs.
Yeah, I saw Kohrek get one spoon proc. I think it may have been more incidental rather than purposeful. Let's see if Peasants uses the ATB trick to make sure it procs.
Looks like he's going for some life glitches on these guards. A little bit of a tenuous situation there, though, as he's already down to, I think, 6, and I don't know if he's found more. But meanwhile, with Kohrek, we have bonus round at back attack. Gonna be a little bit of a slow fight, kind of a slog, but a really nice find for the runners, as that makes ordeals a double key item check.
Oh yeah, even more just key item checks just pouring out of every spot here in the overworld. Now, one thing I am curious to see here, I missed it on the first rotation, but how much damage is this Dark Knight Cecil doing with the black sword here?
I would imagine he's doing somewhere around 200, but we'll take a gander here. Yeah, 150, not bad. That's meaningful damage for this team.
I was hoping for a little more. Congrats, Cecil. You're doing the same damage as Edward. Oh well.
Well, to be fair, Edward also has extra stat boosting gear and a pretty nice bow. So he's helping. They're all helping.
Yeah. And now, of course, there's one other danger that I don't think we're going to see from either of these runners at the caliber they are. But a demist on Ordeals is just asking to be forgotten. Why don't you go get an exciting key item? Why don't you maybe have an alt gauntlet in the Crystal Chamber? Just forget you ever saw me.
Yeah, the best and worst possible thing for our runners would be getting exactly that Excalibur that is added to the key item pool, since Kokol, when forging, doesn't give it to you anymore. If that Excal shows up, ooh, shiny thing, and then you forget about the previous shiny thing, which was the Demus, because now you have Excal Cecil. It would be the best and worst thing simultaneously for the runners.
Here comes the Sparkle.
Well, it's a holy weapon.
So for Kane this seed, we've seen Silver Sword, Wind Spear, Dancing Dagger, Flame Spear, Blizzard Spear, White Spear, Poison Axe. Oh no.
And what was that about an alt gauntlet you were talking about?
I didn't do it.
Do we need to get the memes or the burning and the stakes?
I promise you I weigh considerably more than a duck. So yeah, alt gauntlet here. One really great thing about this being here for Peasants is Peasants bought that stack of 10 bombs. Now, I believe the Spirit-type enemies here absorb them, but the bombs are going to do a great job of tearing through all the zombie dance party portions of this alt gauntlet. So, a very canny purchase from Peasants this season.
Also, Flame Spear.
Oh, yeah.
Kane started with the Flame Spear. This is a great place to make use of it. We see Kohrek using the Blizzard Spear, which will also do good damage when there's only a couple enemies left. This is also going to clear out those souls. And one of the interesting things about this gauntlet for our runners is it can drop a Curse Ring as a super rare drop. Given that our runners have already picked up 1 or 2 apiece, it would be hilarious for them to get a third. Now, there is one other nice thing about this gauntlet. This is normally a no XP spot, but our runners are going to get a ton of extra levels from this in preparation for that potential Asura.
Oh yeah, and with this Cecil coming in at level 1, there's no Slingshot XP, but it's so nice to get just all these levels on your Paladin, get him up to snuff, and just comparable with the rest of the team, if not exceeding them. Not in levels, but in terms of damage and defense and HP and utility and all those other good things we like.
Yeah, and to your point, those bombs coming out for Peasants and making very rapid work of these gauntlet fights. Only one gauntlet fight behind Kohrek now, so catching up fairly quickly. And I believe is still up that Fabul defense check as well.
And one thing I have noticed Peasants doing is making it a point to keep that Edward down. Eddie gains agility super fast, and although the Cursed Ring will mitigate most of it for quite the entire early game, if Peasants ever finds a more suitable anchor, every replacement character he finds is someone he wants to actually use in combat, keeping that Eddie tank in the floor will it safeguards, it's insurance against those future agility issues.
Yeah, Edward, as long as you can keep him in the 10 to 12 agility range, which can be hard since he starts at 9 and he's a speedy young man. It's one of those things where if you can keep him manageable, he can still be a suitable anchor for the team. But boy, when he breaks in a hurry.
And yeah, Peasants is not only equalized, but a little ahead now, taking on this double Lilith fight. I believe this is fight number 5, right?
Yeah.
Much faster. Came into Ordeals a bit later than Kohrek, but gonna be leaving quite a bit, well, not a bit, a few seconds faster. But noticeable time gain by Peasants here. Really well done.
Yeah, those bombs paying off, gets an accidental grind out of Mount Ordeals, gets levels on that Paladin. This for both runners, of course. It's only going to help them in the end. Those extra levels go a long way, as we've seen so many races be not decided per se, but certainly helped one runner versus the other from some early levels. So something to keep an eye on. Will there be any additional grinding that happens for either runner before they keep treading onward here?
Now, we do have the D-Mist turn in, of course, and that Twin Harp hanging, which is an objective. But this team isn't... I mean, this team can probably handle it, but note that Cecil, even with all those levels, doesn't know exit yet. How inclined are you, after D-Mist, of course, to go ahead and do Twin Harp versus perhaps leaving it off, maybe fighting some trap chests, using sirens? Peasant's going right for it, and this scares me because of that D-Mist. Let's see where Kohrek goes.
I mean, this team to me screams Eblin Castle. I would want to look for something shiny for Cecil. Maybe that something shiny is here with D-Mist, and we hope that Peasants goes back for it. But it's a little bit of a worry. And there's that Darkness Crystal. Now this is a lot of bit of worry going for this Twin Harp before that D-Mist check.
Yeah, having access to the character, the shop, the grind options, Kohrek can get a lot of value out of this moon, and being a check behind Peasants, if Peasants does forget that D-Mist, this could be very dangerous. Anyway, got so distracted by that. Agreed completely. Eblin Castle for the trap chest encounters, not something that I would do with every team, but this team, again, assuming no Darkness Crystal, I love it. Love that plan in this situation. Get Cecil up to exit, maybe get a huge weapon drop, and make this Cave Magnus so much easier on your team.
Yeah, that Darkness Crystal kind of throws a huge wrench in that plan, but it opens up a whole new world of opportunities for at least Kohrek. That character, as you spoke about, the shop, maybe some hourglasses up there. We know sirens were already on the hook route. Even coffins, where if you were to run down, maybe throw out some coffins on some warlocks. Lots of different opportunities that the moon presents for Kohrek here. Before doing this Twin Harp and potentially slogging through it, he may be able to blaze through it.
Well, the good news, though, is that because the Twin Harp is a bit of a slower check with all the cutscenes, this does give Peasants plenty of time to suddenly have it, strike him like a bolt out of the blue, like, oh yeah, there was that D-Mist. Let me make sure I go there right when I'm done here. Maybe the music will jar his memory.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Just illusions of note in that shop. But huge shout outs to Calm Lamity, who does a lot of the music that I think we're supposed to be quiet for. Is that the case?
I swear I replied to your question, but I forgot that I'd already hit my mute button, so it didn't come through. But what a cave Magnus. Val being here, very generous. At the Dark Elf spot, her Tornado form only offers her a tiny little bit of physical defense and no evade. So double reward here. Did we say double?
Wow. Much wow. That's a pigtail, y'all. That's a triple required twin harp, so there will be no fading of music this evening.
And that means we're probably going to have a fairly jetty seat as well. The Twin Heart being an objective and a starting item means that I can't see Kohrek fading it to the very final check in the game, of course. So we're going to have 3 checks done before even pursuing this hook route. Or probably 3 objectives done before pursuing this hook route. Does not take a whole lot past that point to enter go mode, especially with this Darkness Crystal.
This does, however, make that D-Mist turn in even more important in order to find out maybe where a remaining key item could be on the moon. Darkness might not be required, but in the event it is, that D-Mist turn-in definitely looms large. So here's to hoping that that Peasants does remember that before proceeding forward. And Pinktail turns into just a Masamune. Not exactly what our runners are looking for, as Edge is more or less the only physical fighter who has not yet joined the team. But a good piece of loot nonetheless.
And one other bit of good news for Peasants, though, is that Kohrek did not get a whole lot of value out of the moon as it currently stands. You mentioned illusions were the only big value item for sale in the shop. The character was a duplicate Cecil, so no duplicates available, did not improve the party composition. The main thing I think that either runner could gain from the moon at this point would be Siren plus Mute Bell plus Warlock for some levels, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's a very good point that the moon has options for grinding, options for levels, but outside of some really cheeky boss checks hoping for a freebie, not a whole lot that this team's going to want to do right now.
Yeah, the best that they could probably hope for, because again, no hourglasses, no coffins, no black mage here to do to inflict mini. Pardon me, to inflict Toad. No white mage to inflict mini. Probably the only boss on the moon that the bosses on the moon that would really be considered free would probably be something like a Bahamut or the King and Queen Eblin. But not a lot of just completely free options, especially for this team that I'm not seeing a whole lot of magic going on with these 5 lads.
I mean, something like an evil wall at the Crystal Sword altar would be air quotes free because of Edward, but yeah, it would take some finagling to make a lot of those type things work. So not a ton of opportunity on the moon for this team. I'm still living in a little bit of fear here, though, for Peasants, as this is.
I don't think you should be scared. I think this hike back multiple floors is exactly what you were. I mean, this is still well, okay, saving here in case it's junk at D-Mist, perhaps.
Yeah, it looks like he did remember, which is very good. We've all been there.
The funny thing, though, is that you could actually argue that it's not very good right now, because we just mentioned there's not a lot of immediate value on the moon. And Peasants just spent a lot of time walking back out when he was nearly to that last save point in that Asura fight. So maybe it would have been better to remember it just a little later.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. But I think while we're pondering if it would have been good or bad, I think that's more music on Kohrek's side.
Matoya's theme, so good. Enjoy it, chat. And then a minor inversion of what we saw just a moment ago. Kohrek going to be getting the news of the triply required Cave Magnus, while Peasants gets to be slightly disappointed by the rewards on the moon. But I am wondering if Peasants is going to... I believe he does have mute bells. Correct me if I'm wrong, or was that Kohrek? Do you remember, Possum?
I think it was Kohrek, not Peasants. But probably going to check this item shop. Look, he's likely thinking, hey, this could be hourglasses, and then we can go to town and get our grind on proper. But going to see illusions, might buy a couple illusions. I know that's kind of a throwback item to when they cost, I want to say like 1,000 in prior iterations of Free Enterprise. But at 4,000, still can be handy to have Blink in a pinch.
Oh yeah, and dang, no cheeky moon grains today. I love a cheeky moon grain. I love seeing a quick pop of a grenade. I love seeing people take maybe a few too many minutes to take down a couple of gold dragons. Love the warlock fight if you have anti-mage weaponry, but at the same time, I don't think either player wants this to be their endgame team. I think both of them would love to at least see one white mage before they commit to meaningful Siren usage.
Yeah, and one of the awkward things, I mean, you had kind of touched on this with a potential reaction grind. What would be even their source of lit? Because does it work with a Thor Rage, or does it have to be an actual lit one cast to make that reaction work?
It has to be single target. So
Okay.
I was just listing off the cheeky moon grinds off the top of my head. This team, you're right, they wouldn't be able to do that. It's strange how that works, because I think it will still use reaction if it's the only enemy on the battlefield when you do it, but not positive. Because there are other monsters with weird scripts like that as well, notably the evil ghosts in the Sylph Cave. If you single target one of them with an ice spell, it's done. It stops it. It does nothing else the rest of the fight. It just ceases to take actions.
I mean, we'll call it a feature, not a bug. It's working as intended.
frozen where they stand. So the good news for us as the viewers is that this is giving us a really great neck-and-neck run back into Upper Babel. Kohrek, of course, has not done the Bull Gauntlet, so Peasants is still up that rat tail check. But we're going to basically have like side-by-side fights against this King-Queen spot and this Asura at Ruby. So it's gonna be great to see competing strategies and techniques to get through these fights side by side at the exact same time.
Yeah, I'm pretty hyped for the different strats that are going to be employed for this Asura. It's a very sloggy fight. I'm wondering if we'll see some double Star Veil strats here to keep Asura from healing herself. But that is after one of the ruder spots in the game. What are we going to get at this King Queen Evelyn spot? Because there are some all-time nasties you can get here. Granted, this party is fairly well set up to deal with most things physical related. Lots of heavy armor users, but this can still be one of those spots that can really surprise you.
I'll go ahead and root for a Dark Knight Cecil, just so that Edward can get some meaningful utility this seed. They may have to reset to do the setup, but I want... well, never mind.
I mean, it's still going to punch hard, but yeah. Just an Octomam. Shouldn't be too much trouble.
Oh yeah, and the nice thing too is that, again, pure physical attacks. We have a Cecil in the back row. Every few attacks will chop a tentacle off and slow it down a little further. A little annoying that it does take half damage versus Holy, but I don't think either runner is going to have any difficulty at this spot.
Yeah, especially when Yang can just tank hits for 1136 damage.
Yeah, you know, I was saying it'd be cute to see a cheeky Dark Knight Cecil here, but even Eddie probably doesn't get to shine in that. It's probably just throw a couple Cure 2s and call it a day.
And it does look like Peasant's taking a quick reset here. I think that Octomam got the best of him there. He might not have that Cecil fully kitted out. Yeah, just a Diamond Helm and a Karate Gi as his armor. So probably going to retool here. But now has that Cecil in the front row. I hope that that doesn't cause any issues. You know, not being able to cover like he may want that Cecil to do.
Yeah, the Crystal Shield will help a little bit, but Kohrek has taken down the Squid. Wonder if we're going to see a safety save from either runner between fights. 45 minutes in on a hook route, you do start to get a little nervous about maybe your opponent fading something important. And in Kohrek's case, he knows he has faded something himself this seed.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things with it being that Wyvern is that if the logical underground access is the hook, that Wyvern could very well gate a Magma Key. And that would be something that would be concerning, not necessarily now, but when he comes back to it later, that could be sitting in his mind, just, is that the Magma Key? And I just never looked at it. And it looks like Peasants is playing a little bit of Life Potion Roulette. Chipping away at this Octomam, hopefully going to get it slow enough that he's able to just chip away, knock these tentacles off and go from there. And I see a Star Veil immediately go up for Kohrek, so it looks like we're going to get double Star Veil strats here, which will prevent Asura from healing herself, which will be quite helpful for our runners in this very long fight that's coming up here.
I don't believe Kohrek looted that Aegis shield that Peasants did, and I think that can cause quite a bit of turnaround on this Asura fight. We see Asura punching like this front row cane for 600 damage on Kohrek's side, so being able to set up, you know, good coverage or even just spacing out that mage defense here will definitely reduce the amount of time you have to spend healing your team in this Asura fight, which is hard. No white mage.
Yeah, it looks like that Cecil's still only taking less than triple digits though, so I think Kohrek's going to be fine. Again, the defense wasn't really ever the concern here. It's can our runners deal enough damage to get through this? Maybe not in a hurry, but in a reasonable amount of time. That Eddie is putting in some work right now. That was 4 digits from Eddie, and was promptly rewarded with a slap to the jaw and put on the ground.
But meanwhile, Peasants has taken down Octomammoth, but 25,000 HP of Asura to chew through here. And I'm just sitting here, you know, I know we mentioned that Darkness Crystal, but after the moon came up Bubkus, do you then start to reconsider the Eblin Castle trap chest? Because I'm thinking there could have been a lot of stuff here that would speed this slow 25,000 HP up.
Yeah, one of the things about the Eblin Castle play is I know we talk about all those shiny swords that Cecil can use, but there's also a lot of other just really good gear in there. Eblin Castle has been my favorite place to loot on this flag set because of the number of tier 5 weapons you come across. And ever so conveniently, rune axes are tier 5 weapons. And it's not unreasonable to think that you might just find one laying around in Eblin Castle. That could go a long way. Even a mute knife could help quite a bit. So there's a lot of reason to at least poke around in Eblin Castle. Get a couple extra levels, see if you can find a really nice weapon, and kind of go from there. It looks like Kohrek has a really good setup, though. This Edward is putting in work on his side. Much more damage than anyone else is doing.
Yeah, finding that Elven Bow in the back of Silvera may be the big difference maker in this fight, because even though it's Eddie, even though he doesn't have the best strength or anything, you take any damage and you multiply it by 4, and you're doing work.
Yeah, and there comes a reset for Peasants. Looks like he's going to drop the battle speed down to 5. He just does not have the same defensive gear that Kohrek does on the vast majority of his party. Again, that's Cecil taking well under triple digits for Kohrek, making the defensive side just a breeze for him. And to your point, again, that Elven Bow, that Edward, really doing work on the offensive side.
It was doing work, but I believe that Eddie is out of arrows, and I'm not sure if Kohrek has saved another stack of anything. We're going to scroll down and see here. Oh, okay. 20 charm arrows probably will last this fight, as long as Kohrek can keep that Starvel up on Asura.
Yeah, these are really good arrows. Charm arrows are basically the second best readily available arrow that you're going to find on these flags. Yes, Artemis arrows can appear in Kokol's shop, but samurai arrows will appear in gated shops, and then those charm arrows can just be on the overworld, and those are going to do a lot of work here. And the fact that they came in a stack of 20 makes me wonder if someone started with them as a bow and arrow, and we may have just missed it.
Kohrek here, keeping the entire team standing, of course, wanting to make sure he gets all the XP from this fight when Asura finally takes the dive. And this is kind of an interesting, again, a big point of contrast between the two runners here. Kohrek let that Eddie stay alive in the vast majority of his fights. Like, that 315 HP doesn't look like a lot, but that Edward's pretty well leveled, while Peasants has been very intent on making Eddie the anchor, and thus he's not able to contribute as much physically as Kohrek is right now.
Yeah, and that's one thing where when you're given a cursed ring to start with, it can make that decision a lot easier, where you can take what is a marginal character in Edward and be able to actively put him to use, and Kohrek has done a phenomenal job of that. Definitely expediting the Asura fight, and will probably have picked up multiple minutes over Peasants here, as they were basically neck and neck getting to this fight, but I think he's going to be out quite a bit sooner.
The subtle rudeness of this fight, I've noticed, is when Asura reflects that Cure 4 or Cure 3 and heals someone up high enough to where Cecil's no longer covering them, but she's still able to one-shot them. kind of a strange bit of rudeness that you wouldn't really anticipate, except with this particular party setup.
Yeah, it's kind of like trying to do cover strats against Baigen, where it works every time until the vampire comes out and ruins your plan. Uh, there's a lot of kind of weird mechanics that go into cover strats working or not, and this is one of those situations where it's generally good, but Asura could throw a wrench in those plans.
Note that this Kane with the White Lance is doing great work on jumps as well, landing for well over 1,000 damage on both runners' sides.
Yeah, and that is Kohrek through. Going to be underground around the 53-minute mark. Not bad given all of the exploration that our runners have done and how rude this hook route was. I'm sure not feeling 100%, great and confident getting underground at this time, given it is a little on the high side. But when taking into consideration the fact that it was, Val at the Twin Harp, that there was a tail available, it's a hook route, the Darkness Crystal was there to look at. That's a lot of lengthy checks and extra things our runners had to do. And speaking of lengthy things that the runners might have to do, that's a Kainatsu at the top tower. That's a ton of hit points. Yikes.
Yeah, all 4 parts of the vanilla Baigen fight combined into one big HP pool. And, where's our white mages? Wait, where are all the white mages? Who hit them? We need a Rosa, we need to pour them. I'd take a Tella at this point. Give me a Cure 4 source.
Oh, I would take a Tella over Porum, but that's just me. I would take a Rosa over both of them. I expect Dwarf Castle to be one of the first, if not the first check that Kohrek makes here. Might go freebies, being only 1 key item away, or excuse me, 2 key items away from the Forge, 1 key item away if he can find a Baron key here. So the freebies also make sense, but man, that Dwarf Castle, I might take a look myself to try to find a white mage, a Fusoya, somebody to help me keep these beefy boys alive.
Oh yeah. But again, there is that element of panic as well. We're underground. We have the Darkness Crystal as well. A Baron key just finishes the seed off. Sorry, I saw the package and I thought, huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it actually kind of is. Because we mentioned how much this team needs a little bit of augmenting, and that's a way to get another character. I wonder if we will see the package peak here, just because of how drastically our runners probably want to change this team.
Now, we know that it was Fusoya at the Sand Ruby, so that means, ooh, Edward's time to shine.
Here we go. Oh,
let's go. It means that a dupe Fu could be on the table. And if that's the case, I think you would check the package and you would take a Fu there. But looks like we are going to get Eddie doing what Eddie does best. He is going to hide and coward his way to victory.
Almost. It's like, wait, I can hide the entire... Oh. Wrong H word.
Yeah, and that was Dark Knight Cecil doing Dark Knight Cecil things at the Leviathan spot. We'll do between 1,131 and 1,305 damage to all living and appearing party members on the screen. The rest are dead. Edward is hiding, not appearing on the screen, and the fight ends just like that. Edward being the only character in the game that could make that check that easy, and Kohrek is rewarded with a Stardust Rod that no one can use.
Oh, but wait, we also got 28,000 XP on Eddie? Look at those 3 extra levels. That's totally gonna be... Yeah. Big ol' whammy.
I mean, it was a great idea, and props to Kohrek for doing it. I wouldn't be surprised to see Peasants do the same thing. And speaking of, Peasants is through that Asura, going to be about 4 minutes behind. However, that is a little clouded because he is up that Fabul check, and that Wyvern can still be very sneaky, even with Kohrek's levels at this point. So that's not a true 4-minute advantage by any stretch. And the pass also being behind that rat tail will make that turn in a little bit longer for Kohrek, as he'll have to double dip into the tail cave.
Oh yeah, and the hovercraft being where it's located will involve, there's going to be some airship swapping, some vehicle repositioning. It's a little bit more of a time sink than you might expect, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those where it might seem like Peasants is 4 minutes behind, but it's probably 2 at best, based on the extra routing that Kohrek's going to have to throw in here. But we will get some more information soon. I would imagine Sheila 1 is on the table here, along with that Fabul defense. And hopefully Kohrek saves, so that way there's no surprise Wyvern and having to reset back to who knows where.
Yeah. Now, did Kohrek actually peek this boss earlier and just elect not to fight it, or did he opt to never even visit Fabul?
I do not honestly remember.
Same, in fact. The early routing was a little cheeky because of, you know, the hook involved, a beatable Baron N. So let's see if he looks surprised by the Wyvern here.
I mean, he is in a situation where he has 2 party members who are guaranteed to survive it. Cecil probably survives a single roll, and then Eddie going to be reflecting. Yeah, Cecil barely lives, so that's going to be 4 people alive, and Kohrek going to be through this very, very speedy, no reset necessary. So, job very well done by Kohrek there.
Yep, very cleanly executed.
And looks like Peasants is saying no to DKC, not going to try those hide strats, and is going to exit out. Now, we know that's a good thing for him.
Yeah. I mean, and this is him actually gaining an extra advantage by being so dedicated to making that Edward the anchor. Like, not gonna give him that 28,000. Not gonna invest that time, especially because, again, needing either Forge or even 1 Baron key for go mode.
Yeah, it looks like Peasant's also going to take a Siren fight here. Going to get some more XP on these party members. This, to me, smells like you would want to do Dwarf Castle if you're doing this. And take those levels and go over there and try to hit another character. Or might get really cheeky and go Keyless Tower, but kind of screams Dwarf to me.
Yeah, do we know if either player has picked up a Thunderclaw for this Yang? I know we still have that wooden hammer that Sid came with, but I was just thinking of the trap chest in the tower.
That's a really good point. I don't believe I've seen a Thunderclaw for either runner. But we are getting that Dwarf Castle check from Peasants. So this is also going to be some new information for us and for our runners to see what remains here in the town of Dwarves, the champions of our Lali-Ho League.
Yeah, I love this play. There are plenty of cool things that you can do for Zaroma strats with a team like this, with no white mage, if you have the money to do so. And we don't really have that right now. So looking to change the party up rather than planning to do some sort of 1200 variety makes a ton of sense. And that is a duplicate Cecil behind the package. So it's all coming up extra Cecils. Are we going to see a 6th party member this seed?
Yeah, that's the 3rd Cecil. So probably not going to see too many more Cecils. Those are D-Lunars, and these are going to be fairly punchy D-Lunars. Maybe not for some of these heavy armor users, but for that Edward, going to be a little punchier than he can deal with. And looks like after a bit of divergence, our runners have met up here in Dwarf Castle and are going to be side by side fighting these D-Lunars.
Yeah, just as you said, you basically evaluated it spot on. It was maybe about 2 minutes of difference, but Kohrek did also take the time to check that package, which probably added just a touch more. And these two runners are basically side by side. Peasants hasn't peaked Sheila 1, so does not have that power shirt. But if a pan comes out of here, Peasants saves all that extra time of having to walk Sylph Cave twice. So just neck and neck, still near over an hour into the seed. And these runners are just so close together. What a great race tonight.
Yeah, and kind of what we expected from these runners as well. They're both extremely good. You know, Kohrek, I believe in the last tournament he was in as well, the Fabul Gauntlet, I want to say was the number 3 seed coming out of that as well, coming out of the Swiss rounds. He was very highly ranked. And I think Peasants has finished in the top 6 in one of the major tournaments as well. So 2 incredibly experienced runners. And we finally have a white mage. And Peasants opts to get rid of Sid, take on Porum. And everybody knows my feelings about Porum, but look, that's water under the bridge. This is a great addition to this team.
Absolutely. Just any white mage now, so nice to see. One of the safeties of Free Enterprise is that if there's no white mage in your seed, and I don't believe Cecil counts, mind you, if there's no white mage in your seed, you'll find Cure 3s for sale. I'm not looking to buy a stack of Cure 3s on this limited money Lali-Ho League Brackets flag set. So actually finding one and just knowing that you have this covered for the end game is a huge sigh of relief, and it'll be that way for both our runners here.
Yeah, more for the source of Berserk to me than any other single thing. The Cure 3s and Cure 4s are nice, but that source of Berserk is just huge. And oh, we have frog problems on Kohrek's side. Looks like the D-Lunar's not playing nice, and that's a little bit of a time loss there. Let's Peasants catch up from that package check and that Sheila 1 check. So I would say our runners are basically dead even now with that little bit of time loss from Kohrek.
Well, I think I'll still give a little advantage to Peasants here. Popping those 2 sirens has done just fantastic things for the power of his team. Kohrek had the power shirt from Sheila, but Peasants just dishing out more damage to the dragons, getting through this Luge fight. Porum sadly not getting XP from this, but I believe Peasants still has, what, 6 more sirens to spare?
Yeah, Peasants had purchased those 8 in addition to the one that our runners started with in the kit. So no shortage of sirens on Peasants' side. And I would imagine that we will see a grind again here to get that Porum up to at least Blink. Maybe even pushing to Cure 3.
But what level does she learn Cure 3 at again? Like 56 or so?
Also, in Van Witch, you called the pan, and there's the pan.
That's so good for Peasants. Again, gonna make up quite a bit of time here, only having to dip that cave once. We know the payout, at least at Sheila 1, is not that great anyway. Maybe Sheila 2 will have some value for our runners.
Yeah, meanwhile, Kohrek, this is going to be hopefully 3rd time lucky for him here. The first 2 attempts not going great on these D-Lunars, giving him a bit of grief here. And meanwhile, we get one of my favorite things in Free Enterprise, the Poison Walk on Poison Tiles.
Shoutouts to Boardface for adding a wonderful no flash effects quality of life feature. But for some of you little gremlins out there, I know you love it. It definitely does bring a tear to your eye.
You know, I know that I've personally gotten in the habit of turning the flash effects off. It can be straining on the eyes. I know that for some folks, it definitely is not visually appealing to have to see it. much like for me, the vintage flag actually causes me stress visually. I know that the flash effects do for some other folks as well. So it's a fantastic quality of life thing that's been added by Boardface, our wonderful developer for Free Enterprise. But speaking of wonderful people, Inven, you're a wonderful people who's on comms with me, and you should get a follow. And we also have a lot of other wonderful people with us. Escorian, our restreamer, rolling this fabulous seed, and Heart Gamer, first time tracking and doing a fantastic job so far. And that doesn't even take into account our runners who are putting on this show, Kohrek and Peasants. Please make sure you give everybody a follow. They deserve your praise, your love, and your follows.
And Possum, almost neglecting a very important person there, PeasantsOMFG as well. Not just killing it on comms tonight, but an amazing racer. If you want to get better at Free Enterprise, watching PeasantsOMFG race is just a fantastic way to do that. And just it's an honor and a pleasure to be in the booth with you. And speaking of that, good luck for Kohrek. Third time was the charm. Gets through these D-Lunars. Going to be rewarded with that White Mage and that Pan once we get through the good Doctor here. But Sheila, I thought Sheila had the goods. What is this?
Sheila had the goods if you're into clothing. But if you're into key items, then Sheila did not have the goods.
Yeah, that entire little route with the Pan through the Sylph Cave, a Strength Ring and a Power Shirt, which for this team, not gonna lie, very fantastic gear to get, and a Ninja Shirt for the Sheila 2 reward. Does this only leave Moon and Keyless Tower? No one's gonna go fight that Antlion, right?
I mean, if you have a source of blink and you're on battle speed 3 or 4, you can jump and power your way through it. It's not pleasant, but it's doable. But no, I think Keyless Tower would be a play long before Antlion. But I can also see just going to the moon and kind of playing around and praying that you find the goods up there.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I know that because we do get double XP at 10 key items, you know, I'm a fan of trying to delay just a little bit longer. Maybe I hit 10 and then I'm getting double from all those boss fights. But we are only at 7. The options on the table are neither one that appealing. I think you're right. It's time to just go and see what boss fights are around up here and hope for one that, like, I don't think any of them are going to be difficult for this team, but I think a lot of them are going to be extremely slow.
Yeah, it's a matter of time consumption that you're going to get through them. Cecil can play defense. Other people can deal damage. But at what cost? You know, do you try to find some freebies rather than taking on fights that might take a while? That's the big question, is what is the plan of attack for our runners? I mean, Orb is free, CPU is free, but that's 37,000 health of CPU. That, with this team and with the damage output that's coming out right now, I don't think that's really viable. That's super slow.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's so weird to think about trap chests an hour and 10 minutes into the seed, but I'm starting to think about it, because what is either of our runners Cecil's equipped with here? Oh, a dancing dagger for peasants. And I think Kohrek's been rocking a flame sword.
Yeah.
You don't have enough money to afford, you know, an ogre axe or a lightsaber or anything like that. And I'm wondering if at this point, to actually bring your party's DPS online, you have to take a chance on a trap chest.
The thing about it is, like, are you, at least for things like Eblin Castle, are you so invested now in not doing it that those are out the window entirely? Do you go for the lower Babel trap chests because they're simply on the way and you can one-shot them? Certainly on Kohrek's case with that Thunderclaw for the Young, I don't know if Peasants has that Thunderclaw, but it looks like that's what he's going for here.
Yeah, let's see what Oh, I think that was meant to hit Eddie. Again, Peasants dedicated to keeping that bard on the floor. Don't blame it at all. You've committed to it. That is going to be your anchor. but let's see if he can one-shot these alerts or if we're going to have a few summon monsters coming in.
That would be a one-shot right there from that jump.
I'm guessing that Kane is probably wearing the power shirt and the strength ring, if I had to take a guess.
Oh, but what about second ninja shirt? So this is the issue with these particular trap chests for me. Now, they may pay out here, but I believe the breakdown on T Pro, which is the treasury setting for the bracket stage, I think it's 10% tier 4, 40% tier 5, 40% tier 6, and 10% tier 7. So you lose out on a lot of the top end that you would get with like Eblin Castle trap chests. Meanwhile, there's an Avenger immediately proving me wrong, because why not? That's a tier 7. That's a perfect item for this party.
Oh yeah, it's so nice. You can not only, of course, instant Zerk your team, so now we have a second source of Zerk, at least for Kane and Cecil, so Porum can devote her attention elsewhere. But it's also just a huge weapon upgrade if you're willing to start the fight with it equipped. And it's great for fixing your turn order. The agility bonus it gives will basically mean that character will put them in the top slot. They will start the fight swinging, buffer your other actions, and we're all 4 of these alerts floor 2 or lower on this tower.
Yeah, they were.
The seed wanted you to do it. It wanted you. It's like, here, take my loot, please.
Pretty incredible how how densely located. I mean, that's so a power shirt, an Avenger, a bandana, and a ninja shirt. That's 3 out of 4 that are legitimately great for this team and what it wants to do. So this is, might put Peasants ever so slightly behind time-wise, but all those extra multipliers are really going to make up quite a bit of difference here, if he's even behind anymore.
Oh yeah, and again, with this setup, Peasants will be able to dish out a ton of damage to the turtle, Kenatsu at the top of the tower, before it gets the first the first wave off, does 4 to 6% of its current HP. Now this Porum's still pretty low health, but this Yang, this Kane, this Cecil, plenty of hit points to be able to survive these initial waves.
Yeah, I don't foresee any issues here for Peasants as far as getting through. My concern is just the very last phase of this and making sure there's no remedy lock. I think with Avenger it'll be fine, but this also might be where a well-timed jump with a Blizzard Spear could really come in handy to close out the fight, just because the remedy is going to do what? In the 28 to 3,000 health range for the cure here?
I think it does. Doesn't it do 10% of max HP?
Oh, if it's 10, then yeah, it's only going to be like 2k. I mean, I say only. That's still a ton.
Yeah. It's a little bit. The main thing here I'd be worried about is if Peasants is going to be able to... I want my Porum to survive this fight. I want her to get 26,000 XP and kind of come online. I was shocked we didn't see another Siren toss, to be honest. So we'll see if she can make it through this fight and, finally line properly. I don't think she even knows Zerk yet.
Yeah, it certainly does not know Zerk, but looks like this is going to be a well-timed Thor Rage, or what I think looks like a well-timed Thor Rage. But that buffering from Cecil and this jump might push it back far enough that the wave is still going to fire, which would be certain death for the small child. But we shall see.
Kane from the top rope. And Escorian asking in chat, why did Peasants row swap? May be intending to take some plane swings with the Kane instead of just jumping. And the Kane is not back row glitch, but the Cecil is.
I don't actually think the Cecil got back road.
Oh really? Never did a swap to a bow. My bad.
Yeah, I think he was just rocking that dancing dagger, which I know for the longest time I thought dancing dagger would back row, but it doesn't.
Yeah, very effectively taking down the turtle, not getting the XP on Porum though.
has the sirens, so less of a a big deal than normal. But there is a black shirt, more great stuff for people who don't exist in the scene.
Well, I think we know where Peasants is going next.
Antlion?
Not gross. Why would you say such a thing? I mean, honestly, it depends on to what degree you want to metagame. These other checks have come up a little bit bogus. You think, what is the last thing my opponent is going to want to do this seed? It's kind of Antlion, but the problem is that's also the last thing you want to do this seed.
Right.
But the more I think about it, the more I don't hate it, because we have Yang who can power punch without drawing a counter. We have Kane who can jump without drawing a counter. We have Cecil who can cover the entire team. And if you're not drawing the counters, Cecil's just going to block every attack anyway. It's a fairly reasonable Antlion, shockingly enough, but I still don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's still a walk down there. It's healing up. It's doing the fight. It's a whole lot of ugh. Like, just it kind of makes your skin crawl having to do Antlion anywhere that you can't just zerk up and kill it or kill it in like 3 hits. It's just annoying.
Yeah.
But at least it's not on the moon, right?
True. It's just like that's you're just like, oh, like I don't want like it just makes me dread it. It's like having to wake up for Saturday school or something, like oh, like is it really making my life that meaningfully worse? No, but I hate it.
But yeah, that second walk down into the Fame Arch, the actual fight itself, I think the moon makes a lot of sense. The trap chest, again, the check of doing the Kainatsu on the tower, it didn't necessarily pay out as far as progression, but that was a power shirt, an Avenger, a bandana. I just feel like that's going to give Peasants so much in the way of momentum going forward, and Kohrek as well, as they both did these trap chests and both got those same items. It's just going to give them a lot of steam going forward. And we do see Kohrek also in the shell phase here, and that Porum does have levels also. So a nice little leg up there once he decides his next move.
Yeah, I mean, Peasants still has that stack of Sirens, but I don't think we've seen a single Hourglass pickup. We weren't sure earlier if Peasants had found Mute Bells or purchased any, or even, has a spare one. And that Porum, I don't think is high enough level to be able to manually cast Mute either. So, it maybe just... And I guess the main free bosses we could find are anything that is purely physical, so Cecil can get his cover on, but that means that you're not letting him contribute to damage by avenging. It's a very... I'm imagining myself in these runner shoes, and the seed definitely feels like it's lacking clarity of purpose. Like, what exactly should I do? Because there's so many options, and it's really hard to pinpoint which one seems remotely optimal at this point in the seed.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, do you try to figure out a way to get to the point where you can do things fast, or do you just keep slogging away for progression? Because on this flag set, we see a lot of these races end in the hour and 10, hour 15 mark. But then there's also the flip side of that, where you see races that end at 150, 155, 2 hours. And the seed really dictates it. Yes, there were 3 very early objectives completed, but they were all at the same spot. It was all Twin Harp, all day. Nothing else. Everything has been dry as can be since then. So it's one of those where unless our runners find the answer quickly, the seed is going to drag a little bit. They're going to feel like it's running long, but in reality, that's just how this one is playing out.
Well, fortunately, Peasants does find a somewhat benign fight at the D-Lunar spot. Mylon and Ghasts here. probably a relatively easy 100,000 XP. The big concern here, of course, is if Mylon dies first, all these gas are going to start punching and punching ridiculously hard. If all the gas die first, well, you still be dealing with all of Mylon's Lightning 1 spells, but he'll also periodically punch. And again, the question I have here is, with your setup, are you going to be able to get XP on this Porom this fight? Because there's no slingshot XP on this flag set. The more fights she's dead for, the harder you're making it on yourself for subsequent boss fights, and ultimately for the Zeromus fight as well.
Yeah, and if there's anything we know about Porom, it's that her XP curve is questionable. She doesn't learn Cure 4 until level 48, so she needs all the XP she can get. That Cecil, still not back road. Looks like Peasants is going to take care of that right now, reset out of that fight completely, and is going to go back in with a back road Cecil. Saw 334 damage coming out with an Avenger Cecil from the back row, and realized, I have forgotten something. Let me figure out a new plan of attack. And looks like he's actually going to go to the Plague spot. Meanwhile, Kohrek doing one of the things that you were very happy to see. Some Warlocks there, getting his early grind on, which seems like a much more appetizing thing than fighting Ogopogo literally anywhere.
Yeah, you started out with one of the things I was looking forward to seeing, and one thing here I am not looking forward to seeing. But what I am glad to see is that Cecil now swinging for 1,600 damage instead of 300 damage. Fantastic to see him online. Just very painful for an Avenger Power Shirt Cecil to be doing as little as we saw. So this is going to do Peasants a lot of good, having taken the time to get that back row glitch set up.
Yeah, I do wonder, and it's not just for this fight, but for possibly other fights, would it be better to have that Kain avenging and that Cecil covering? Especially for this fight, where Ogo's just going to be smashing people with those physical attacks. I get a little concerned that Peasants might lose the ability to keep enough people alive here.
Well, I'm also wondering if at this point, Peasants may be feeling a little bit behind. Did, of course, take the trek up the tower to get only the black shirt, which we know from our 1,000-foot viewpoint that Kohrek did the same thing. Peasants also walked out of Upper Babel, remembered that D-miss turn-in after already mostly going through, and went back to find that it didn't give immediate strength to his team. So maybe feeling behind, maybe feels I need to take a few risks here, and does get through that Ogopogo fight, but again, no XP on Porom yet.
No XP, but if you want Porom to survive things, that Heroine Robe is a great start.
Yeah, true. The Heroine Robe being the piece of gear that basically converts any of your Lady Mages into Warrior Princesses. Big penalties to magic stats, big boost to physical ones, and a whole lot of defense. So maybe that's the trick to getting her up and running.
Yeah, I will say also, our restreamer Escorian decided to put all of the shirts into the seed, leaving no shirt behind. Everybody gets one. All the flavors have been found. So, yeah, I don't know if Esco's telling us that that she wants to go shopping or what it is that's going on, but all the shirts are available for every character.
I need a ninja shirt, I need a power shirt, I need a heroine shirt. You can't wear the same thing twice in back-to-back seeds, of course. We do see Kohrek appears to be content with the grinding for now, or maybe just out of Sirens and or Mute Bells, but has great levels on his team, including that Porom. Should have a little bit of an easier time with some of these fights just by virtue of having an operating white mage on the team to help out. We'll see if he dives right to that Mylon and Friends fight. And meanwhile, we've got this Elements fight over here. I am terrified of the Ruby part of this fight.
Yep, especially here.
That was Fire 2, split 5 ways.
Yeah, as long as Oh, this is not good. This is not good. Okay, bye! Yeah. Highest magic attack in the game, or tied for it, I believe, with the CPU spot. Maybe with Evil Wall spot as well. It hurts. Those are nasty.
And it just goes to show again how remarkably rude this seed is. It teased our runners with, you know, early, oh, maybe we'll be in go mode pretty quickly. 3 objectives at one place. But then it didn't really give the party to be able to deal with a lot of these boss fights in easier fashion. Elements. If you have one Black Mage at moon levels, throw a Starvel up, reflect everything. Never see a form other than the Mylon Z. This team, I think even if we had this Porum up to Cure 3, reflecting Cure 3s ain't my idea of a good time either.
No, definitely not. We are seeing a huge difference that those levels are making, though, for Kohrek. Not really having any trouble with this Mylon fight, whereas Peasants, we've seen that Edward get knocked down already, that Porum in constant danger, the gas taking well more than 1 to 2 hits to get through, whereas Kohrek is just chopping down this Mylon. So that Warlock grind he did definitely paying off in order to get him prepped for the bottom of this moon.
And that's a kind of a tricky thing, because I fully believe that on the majority of these Lali-Ho League bracket seeds, you're not going to pay a huge price for, you know, cutting out a little bit of your overworld shopping, your ungated item shops, foregoing mute bells. But this seed, it may end up being the big determining factor. Just a few of those mute all enemy items to facilitate the best grind option possible.
Yeah.
What else we... Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, I believe this is a no hourglass seed. So it takes a lot of the more traditional options off the table. So that mute bell pickup ends up being incredibly clutch for Kohrek.
But both runners looking in great shape to finish this fight. Now, the gas are down. Peasant's back row heavily armored. Front row has the Yang with just buckets of HP. As long as Mylon isn't too rude, should be coming out of this with XP on that Porum.
Yeah, that's the big thing for Peasants here, is that 100k, that might by itself push Porum to Cure 3. It would at least get her close, certainly with Zerk and Blink, and you know, some of those other spells there, but needs to make sure that Porum lives here. Otherwise, she falls so far behind the 8-ball.
Now, on the flip side of things, in all fairness, though, is that in order to reach Go mode, I believe our runners will... Well, there's one way to reach Go mode without hitting 10 key items, and that would be Baron Key and a Crystal, with Baron not giving anything. Yeah. But theoretically, 10 key items in that stack of Sirens, Peasant's Porum can be online in the long run, but missing out on these intermediate ones is still very dangerous.
Yeah, Earth and Magma. I mean, hey, we can get underground now. Peasant's deciding that he does not want anything to do with that Elements fight, and I can't say I blame him. Doesn't have a way to sustain the HP that Kohrek is going to have. So I think he kind of has to bounce off that fight for now and seek greener pastures, while Kohrek is going to take on this Ogopogo.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if you have had a bumpy road through a seed, and this seed has been very bumpy for both runners, very unfriendly, remarkably rude, fascinating to see how they both handled it. But it's important in a race context to play to your outs. If a spot you know is going to take you way too much time and resources to get through, fade it. Find greener pastures, just like you said, and that's exactly what Peasants is doing here.
Yeah, and Ogopogo proving his rudeness, the Canadian Nope Noodle himself deciding, Kane, you're dealing a lot of damage. Let me make sure you deal none. Thwap.
Love how Square programmed all these magical boss spots to have exceedingly high physical attacks. And really fun how the randomizer gets to take advantage of that in punishing fashion.
Yeah, I mean, because doesn't Plague just deal a ton of physical damage in the vanilla game? Oh, wait. At least we know this Bahamut is only going to kill people a little bit at this Wyvern spot, and not all the way. Although I think everyone would still die here to a Mega Nuke. But that doesn't happen. Peasants is through. And we shall see, now that Porum finally has levels, what our next piece of information is. And the verdict is just a Charm Rod. Not even the best piece of mage stat stickery for our mageless party.
My attitude towards that in Peasant Shoes would be, don't care, Porum got levels.
Yeah.
Completely worth every bit.
Now, this is a big moment, obviously for us in the booth, but for the runners also. Kohrek does have the means to take on this Elements fight. Has the sustainable HP from that Porum, who at least is going to have Cure 3. As long as you can get past the Ruby stage of this fight, everything is fine. So, we shall see.
That's a pretty big if, though, isn't it?
Yeah, as long as that Fire 3 doesn't come out, you're okay.
Okay, so hear me out, though. You know how we had the second Cursed Ring earlier? Do we have multiple pieces of Dragoon gear? Could we just curse both Kane and Cecil and let them get through the fight that way?
It could happen. Also, I see Peasants is walking back to the bottom of the moon. After exiting out, is he going to take on Elements? This is curious to me.
Yeah, I'm wondering, maybe he thought he had full cleared everything after the Wyvern altar and then decided not to? Or maybe he thought he left the stove on? Maybe, okay, going back the other, I'm so confused, Pause. Help me out.
I thought he exited to do the Murasame altar, the Pale Dim spot, and just said that Elements can stay where the Elements can stay. But now I'm confused.
Maybe that's exactly what he intended, but you know, sometimes your thumbs go on autopilot in this game. When you play as many seeds as these runners do, you kind of learn the maps, and you can very easily zone out and just, like, with your peripheral vision, make your way downtown. And I think that may have been what Peasants was doing here, just started to think about strategy, what to do next on the seed, and the thumb just took him the wrong direction.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Kohrek is through that Elements fight. So if this has value, specifically the Baron Key, this would be a terrible situation for Peasants. That's a tower key, that's a 10th key item, but not direct value as far as Go mode is concerned, at least from what we can tell right now. But that tower key is another thing that Kohrek is going to have access to. And he will have access to it and Peasants will not. There is a punchy, nasty boss in Odin. I don't think the actual Zantetsuken here, though, is going to do more than, what, about 1,000 damage? I think this spot is pretty tame, if I remember right.
You are right. Very so not a whole lot to worry about on that front, but I think this Porum's so low HP that it will still take her down. I'm very curious, though, because I know that Kohrek is a huge fan of going to the moon one time and full clearing it. So he's very likely, I believe, to commit to not just this Wyvern altar, but to do that Odin fight that Peasants is doing, to go back and take down that CPU at Cave Bahamut. So if Peasants gambles right, can completely swing this thing back the other direction. But Kohrek's going to be leveling up like mad with these 10 key items, so it's very dynamically balanced.
Yeah, Kohrek's going to have the check advantage, he's going to have the level advantage, but Peasants might have the routing advantage if he's able to fade the right things. And then it comes down to, can Peasants get through the Zeromus fight with what would be more of a janky setup, whereas Kohrek is just going to frankly have power overwhelming at that point.
Peasants does take down that Odin. Don't think we even saw one Zentetsuken.
Ooh. That's a game changer, though.
I think I would like that far more than a 10th key item a lot of the time. Absolutely.
Yeah. That Excalibur makes a lot of wrongs become suddenly right. Kind of feels a little bad. You wish you would have had that for the bottom of the moon. But in this situation with the runners needing what they needed, top down probably didn't seem like a great play. Also, having the pass available incentivizes going to the bottom. So I definitely understand the runners' move here to go bottom up instead of top down. It's, you know, it's unfortunate the Excal is where it is, but it's nice for at least Peasants right now to have it, and probably soon for Kohrek as well.
We do see Peasants taking the flight back to Cave Value, figuring that Excal and the levels he gained in the Lunar Subterrane has given him the strength to take down these orbs. And frankly, I agree with him. Definitely like this fight a lot more now than when we first came to the moon.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing he's picked up as a chain is Earth Crystal. So he would be leaving the moon for exactly Earth Crystal. I guess you could do it, but I don't know. That seems like an awful big gamble, given what's still left out there. What I am curious here, though, is if we just go straight into Avenger Excal, and also do we get blinks on that that attacker orb? Well, that's out of the question immediately, because Cecil says, I dislike the attacker orb. Bye-bye!
Well, at least Cecil is now targeting the big orb nicely. You know, I think this team has the DPS to overwhelm the defender, especially when Cecil's critting for over 5,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage coming out. One of my favorite things with CPU is you get runners who are very comfortable in their current party comps and will press their advantage and just try to do whatever they can to get through fights quickly. And you get to see some of the most spectacular failures on CPU because of people just wanting to push it to the limits. I'm hoping that's not what happens here, of course. But it's one of the funniest things to me is that you're like, oh, I can do anything. And then CPU says, no, you can't.
And I will note here that Kohrek here making a fool out of me. I swear I've seen him full clear the moon, including Cave Bahamut, before coming back to chase anything. Not tonight, though. Saying, I've got this tower key. I can drop a save on the lunar surface. I don't like CPU fights. Who likes CPU fights? I can make this quick check, and if this is garbage, if this is junk, if he wants to, he has the save on the lunar surface to go right back. So it makes a lot of sense, but at the same time, throwing me off my pre-game studies and analyses.
Well, and that orb having the adamant rock takes away an out from Kohrek, having left a little early. So that's a bit interesting. If the Legend Sword is behind Earth Crystal here, and the Baron Key is not behind Super Cannon, that's huge for Peasants. On the flip side of that, if the Legend Sword is behind this Tower Key, that's really dangerous for Peasants. So this Tower Key is going to tell us a whole lot about where the seed is going to go. I know we're an hour 40 in and our runners are probably in full-blown panic mode already, but this is going to be a huge bit of information for us in the booth as far as painting the path to victory for one of these runners.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, chat, our runners had 3 objectives lit up with a pass and a darkness crystal as of what, possibly like the 40-minute mark?
Might have been less than that, yeah.
So they have been a full hour at this point knowing, I just need a Baron Key, I just need a Baron Key. Oh my gosh, my opponent's going to be finished any moment now. Where's the Baron Key? So not just, you know, the state of panic they're in, but to have sustained panic, I am sure they are both exhausted at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer a question from chat, if Tower is Legend, does that mean Zot leads to Baron? Not necessarily. It could be through Antlion. However, Tower Key leads to Baron, which means unless this is exactly the Legend Sword from Zot, Peasants is in big trouble here.
Absolutely. So this Baron key means Kohrek doesn't even have to full clear the castle if he doesn't want to. Just has to fight that Baigen. You could hoof it out afterwards, but I would be tempted to see that character, especially Kohrek knowing that there are Fusoyas in the seat. Maybe one and a duplicate. But Peasants absolutely needs to land a Legend Sword here. Even if it were a Luca key with a Legend Sword behind it, I think that takes too much time. So it's gonna come down to what he gets out of this tower.
Yeah, I wonder, is the shot, well, that that takes care of one of my questions. I was going to say, is the shot at a potential dupe Fusoya worth the chance of running into Golbez on the Baron throne? Which that question is now answered.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing too is that it's such a lengthy walk out of the castle anyway. I'm trying to think notable key items that we could get here. I mean, you actually have a double shot at it. You have a shot from the character itself and a chance of getting the Sand Ruby as your reward. Yeah. So the fact that it's a double shot, I think, probably makes it worthwhile. But Kohrek might not even need a Fu at this point. Like, Porum? Okay, no. You still want the Fu. I take it.
Yeah, Fu's gonna have 512 more HP than Porum. And that's a lot of HP.
Yeah. And yeah. Not much of a question there.
Looks like Peasant's not healed up going into this fight. Golbez doesn't do a ton of damage here, but definitely does enough to one-shot these characters. So this is a sketchy situation, especially with one of them being avenged. Yeah, that's a very unfortunate wipe, and I don't know if Peasant saved up the tower or not. He did, thankfully.
And Kohrek here is saying, no, I'm done fighting things that aren't Zeromus, after all. But, fun fact, we don't walk out of Baron this way very often. There's the little portcullis, the little drainage vent. Okay.
Yeah, it's always the first time or two you walk out, and especially in a high-pressure situation like this. Again, with runners of this caliber, you're an hour and 44 minutes in, and you're just thinking to yourself, where's that dot done? How is my opponent not dot done? How have I not dot done already? These seeds don't normally take me this long. And so those, the nerves are running through, and you're just trying to walk out of somewhere you don't normally walk out of, and it gets a little confusing.
Now, my other question, though, is Kohrek's item situation. He definitely has a lot of damage output, but the healing and the recovery situation would be my greater concern in his shoes.
Looks like Cure 3's in a dream.
No hesitation. Heading right to Troya. Doesn't even have Cure 4 on Porum yet.
Yeah, it needs 3 levels on Porum for Cure 4, so... yeah, here we go though. Kohrek throwing caution to the wind, saying the time is now. And
I mean,
the boss is here.
I'm terrified.
I am too.
I don't like, I mean, I will do some cheeky things with low level teams, but like, I usually like to have, maybe a source of Cure 4, maybe a black mage who can nerf big bangs, exactly when I want them to in my party order. Kohrek? Nah. Kohrek's going for it.
And not even that Excal from the Murasame altar. But Invan, I see a ton of flags in chat. I am a little tired myself. I've been up since about 3:30 a.m. So this has been quite the day for me. Is it nap time? Is it sleepy time? What's going on here?
Well, first of all, Possum, take care of yourself. Don't be like that. Get some rest, my friend. But 2, so we randomize all our characters, all our bosses, all this stuff gets scattered everywhere. Not Zeromus. Zeromus stays put, end of the seed. But we do dress him up a bit. Gonna have so many different sprites in the pool. And that means as we throw this crystal, we must ask the important question, who's behind? Are we gonna rewind tonight?
I love it. You got the best questions in Ven, you really do. It looks like Peasants has found a Rydia. If you ever wanted an anchor, there's one. Oh, it's Bracketmus or Chartimus. Yep, I remember this one. This is such a good sprite.
Peasants not bothering with either of these baby black mages, throwing them both to the curb.
Yeah, I mean, they might have been nice about an hour and 20 minutes ago. Not so much right now.
Kohrek here nerfs the first Big Bang. The counter nuke goes on Yang. Hard to pick a better target than that. Definitely has more than 1,200 to spare after the fact. Peasants finding Pale Dim here. I love seeing that Cecil damage.
Yeah, Kohrek pushing just under 5k with Cecil and Kane. Gonna be throwing Yang into the mix here as well for Zerking. So should be up near the 7k range. It's actually more damage than I expected. The big concern with that damage range is either a second Big Bang into Medio or a second Big Bang into Black Hole into Medio, which is even worse. So this damage range is a little bit worrisome, especially with the lack of curatives that you had called out earlier.
Meanwhile, on Peasant's side, we're going to see, does he get go mode here? Hanzo Steel. So if you're Peasants here, I think you have to make the Antlion play, right? Like this is your swinging for the fences, given what you faded on the moon.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're already down here. You haven't seen a dot done yet. There's no way that party comfortably takes on Antlion early on, so it absolutely makes sense. And Escorian, our restreamer, also pointing out, Peasants didn't do DKC either, so has both of these Fey March checks to do.
Yeah, good point.
That being said, I think knowing there's an Edward available and knowing shenanigans can be done, I think you start with the Antlion.
Yeah, I think you assume that your opponent, with starting Cursed Ring, starting Edward, you check the overworld, even the moon, you didn't find a 6th character to kick the Bard out with. So it's reasonable to assume your opponent did Eddie shenanigans already, and that if it were the solution to the seed, would have seen the dot done already.
So it looks like we have a Silk Web coming out from Kohrek. The nuke again going on Yang. Zeromus being very kind.
Well, I do believe Kohrek's Porum is walled up, so would only be smacking itself. The chart would only be smacking itself in the face if it targeted her. But yeah, eating a counter nuke and everyone on your team still being above 1,200 HP is such a sigh of relief. You know everyone's going to be standing after the Big Bang. You have your heals ready to go. Although it looks like there may have been a refill here.
Yeah, I think that was a fake shake. Got the refill. And yeah, as expected, looks like Peasants going into that Antlion fight and just going Excal into Avenger, saying, well, at this point, we just beat this thing to a pulp. We don't worry about no stinking counters.
You know, I do love how Peasants in so many fights has wanted to keep his Edward dead. And before he could even queue up his own attack on Edward, the boss has him covered. The bosses are completely on team Edward Anchor tonight for Peasants. And, you know, it's always nice to have that little bit of assistance going for you.
Absolutely. And Yang with his nuke magnet pulls a third for Kohrek. Meanwhile, Peasants is through that Antlion and was the value there all along. The answer is possibly. But you'll have to go spelunking for it.
And you know what the other great part about this is? We have a whopping 0 characters who can cast Warp to accelerate your way out of the cave. If that's the goods, you're walking it out. But meanwhile, Rocks on Kohrek's side, tons of HP on the team. This one is about to be signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yes, indeed. Plenty of HP here. Cecil, Yang, Porum definitely going to live through whatever comes out here. Now everyone's going to live through it. So yeah, this is done and dusted. Kohrek is going to be tying this one up at 1-1.
Yeah, so GG's in chat for Kohrek. And the good news for everyone who is enjoying the tournament is this means we at least have one more race than we otherwise would. And it's going to be, you know, a do-or-die situation for both runners. Pay attention to the schedule. Get hyped for the Game 3 between these two amazing runners. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to make sure I tune in for it. And in the meantime, we'll see if either of our runners wants to come in for an interview.
Yeah, and...
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that third game is going to be Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Since we know that it is coming in, since we will have that third game, it will be, again, 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday. And I believe that dinging is Kohrek joining us. GG to you, Kohrek.
Thank you.
Quite the seed indeed. You played really well. There were definitely some trouble spots in there. The seed not being very kind early with party composition. Kind of walk us through your thoughts as you're collecting party members, but not finding any that really worked well together. What was your thought? What were you looking for? Kind of take us through your mindset with your party.
So, yeah, this party composition, it was very interesting because there wasn't much that this party couldn't get through, but everything was just so slow. Like, everything was so slow. You know, like early in the game, you can, you know, have a black mage to speed you up, or maybe a Porum is great in the early game because she gets berserk so early, and you know she can get your zerkers going. But we were just like brute forcing our way through just awful fights for so long. It took so long to get any momentum, it felt like.
Yeah. Definitely was a lot of slow fights there. You made the most of a very touch and go hook route, though. Your execution on the Asura fight in particular, just wanted to shout that out. It was beautifully done, and also making great use of that Edward in that fight. You just blitzed through that Asura, you know, given what resources you had available. So just wanted to make sure to compliment you on that fight in particular.
Yeah, thank you for that. So what really helped out there was having that Elven Bow, which, you know, obviously a Yang and an Eddie start is not very good, especially, I guess I should say, when Edward does not have a Dancing Dagger, it is not very good. So I just said, you know what, I'm just going to do a shopping spree. We got a lot of gold in this one. I think it was in the upper 60,000. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to find something to make this a little bit faster. And it took a while, but at some point I found an Elven Bow, I think in Silvera, and eventually I think I found Charm Arrows in Evelyn Cave, and that certainly turned him into, he did his job until he left the party, for sure.
One other notable thing on that flag set was just the absolute flurry of objective completions coming at you out of Cave Magnus, getting a 3-for-1 there, more or less. How did already having 3 objectives complete before going impact your decision on how to route the rest of the game? Like, what was your plans once you had all of the underground, basically, all of the moon available? What were you thinking after you made it through that hook route as far as your pathing going forward?
So... actually, I want to say, like, during the hook route. So I faded Fabul before doing the hook route because I felt like let's make a play. And then I'm like sitting there in that long Ashura fight. I'm like, okay, let's see the items. Let's count the items that could be in Fabul that would like make this such a terrible decision. 1, Magma Key, obviously. 2, Sand Ruby. 3, Baron Key. Like, man, I would really regretted that decision. So I was, you know, wow. Luckily, that, you know, turned out to be fine. But I was, it was touch and go there for a bit, and then I was underground, so I had that outstanding football check, and I think that's what was driving me to not do Dwarf Castle first before getting the pan. I just go right for the Sheila check because I was kind of like really worried about the bull, and then I get that pan like right away when I go back underground. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but then from there it was just I got that Leviathan spot out of the way because we still had Edward at that point, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do everything except for that antlion and go to the moon, and that's just what we're going to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. We had a fairly lengthy discussion about how that antlion kind of epitomized this seed that, yes, you'd be able to get through it. But pre-moon, it would have taken 10.5 years to do it, and it just didn't sound appetizing whatsoever. Now, talking about that moon, though, when you got up there, you did some warlock grinding pretty early on, and it really helped get you through the bottom of that moon. Was that something that's kind of particular to this party setup for you that you wanted to do, or is that something you just like to do in general?
So that's funny. I did it back in the football gauntlet a lot, but I haven't actually done it on these flag sets very often, but it just lined up because I feel like I usually have Teller or Fu in these seeds, and I usually have hourglasses, and I had neither of those things, but I did. When I see mute bells, I don't know why, but I always buy 3. That's my that's my number. And I got up there, I still had 2 mute bells left, and I still had 2 sirens left. I'm like, look, my levels aren't great yet. Porum has like Cure 2 or something at this point. Like, let's just do 2 fights, and that should make the bottom a lot easier. And I really didn't have any issues down there. Like, obviously, low 30s moon fights are going to be a little bit slow, but as long as you get through them, that's what really matters.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Go ahead, and Ben.
Yeah, just gonna say GG's and well played again. Good job of equalizing. Of course, playing from a game down. Definitely adjust, your level of panic, your level of intensity. So tied it up. We'll be looking forward to that final match on Friday. Just wanted to give you the floor for your last thoughts on the seed before we get rolling on to your competitor.
Yeah, just thank you for putting on this show. This was an interesting one. I felt like I needed to make a play at the end, so I left some stuff on the moon, and it seemed to have paid off. Man, it's tough. Like the degree to which you're like, okay, should I make a play here or not? Like it's definitely ramping up because I think everybody is pretty close from here on out, and all these matchups are can go either way. So the decision making. The closer it gets, the more like gambling comes in, just because you might need it. So I don't know. It's a lot of fun. The seed was great. As far as like challenging, I like being challenged on seed, so I would say it's great for that perspective. And I just look forward to Game 3 on Friday, 8 p.m. I think you covered that though. So thank you again.
Hey, GG's again, Kohrek. Well played. And I believe that we are also about to be joined by PeasantsOMFG. Peasants, are you there with us?
I heard the ding, but I don't see the... Oh, there he is. GG's, Peasants.
Hey, GG, thank you.
So Peasants, I believe you may have set a record for most times killing Edward in a seed. Why do you hate the bard just so much? What did he do to you?
I don't know. I probably didn't even need to kill him that much. He had a curse string on, but I mean, I just wanted it on the ground.
Hey, with how that seed treated both of you that seed, that was just one of the ruder ones I think we've seen, just because of how it teased you with the prospect of a fairly early go mode, and then buried everything so deep behind rude bosses and a team that didn't have a lot going for it. I want to know your thoughts mainly after you made it underground. You had 3 objectives out of the way. You had the moon, you had the underground at your disposal. What was your thinking on your routing after you had fallen down that pitfall?
I knew I was behind for sure, but after seeing the Fame Arch bosses, I wasn't gonna do them. So yeah, I had to still play standard until I had some sort of decision to make. I think I went after I did the pan-handed. I went and checked Moon because I hadn't checked it, and then saw it was CPU, and I was like, you know what, no, gone back to do healer's tap. I don't know, so many poor decisions, and I did a fail.
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, the seeds seem to make it to where all the decisions that could be made were pretty bad ones, so I wouldn't beat yourself up too badly over that. That was more just a function of the truly impressive garbage that Iscorian rolled for your enjoyment tonight.
Yeah, it wasn't nice.
Awesome. What are you thinking about what you saw that seed?
Just basically everything that could set folks up to go wrong was in that one. Everything from where D-Mist happened to be. Oh, you got back to attack D-Mist? Well, here's a gauntlet and a key item and 100 other things to take your mind off D-Mist. And we saw you back out of the hook route to turn it in, thankfully, and go up to the moon and do all those things. But that was just one of many things in the seed where it was like planting traps for you and doing its best to just throw you off your game. It was just a very awkward seed to run, I'm sure. It was awkward to kind of commentate on at times because, as Inven pointed out, there weren't a lot of great places and great options to go. It was what's the least bad option.
Yeah,
so,
everything didn't feel like a good option at all.
Right, that's kind of what we were thinking, and it sounds like that was kind of how you were thinking as well. When you saw that initial hook route with that Asura, did you have any plans to try to pick up some extra mage killing gear or some mage defense? What was kind of your mindset, going down that hook route with that team?
I bought the early mage dagger, and I was like, you know what? That's good enough. But in reality, I really should have searched for an elven bow or something like that. That fight is not particularly nice. And then when I went into it, it was already too fast. That was speed 3, so I think I went to 5 to make sure that the star veils wouldn't wear off. But still, it was pretty mean-spirited, sure. But I think I should have probably went in with a little bit more, planning, simply because I know it's one of those things where it's like if my opponent has bought an elven bow or even found a rune axe in somewhere I didn't loot, I'm 10 minutes behind at that point, because that fight goes 2 minutes and mine goes for 12.
There was one thing I wanted to point out, and Inven shouted this out during the live event, if you will, was the bombs that you had for ordeals ended up paying off quite a bit for that gauntlet. You made up a ton of early ground using those bombs on that gauntlet, and just in general having them as a utility. So just wanted to give that a big shout, as some very heads-up gameplay while you're going through that early game.
You see the bombs, there's no reason not to pick them up. They cost nothing, and then if you have a gauntlet in the overworld, it definitely speeds stuff a lot and doesn't use up your full rages, which you need most of the time.
Well, Game 3 is on the horizon. Your opponent did manage to equalize tonight. Have you generally approached these matches differently in the bracket stage when you've been, a game ahead, a game behind? Does that adjust your gameplay, the risks you're willing to take, your mindset? How are things going to change, you think, from tonight to Friday night in terms of how you're going to approach the seed and the competition?
I'll still play the same way, but I'll definitely do a little bit more practice and just kind of try and reset, because there was multiple moments in that seed where I was diving Moon multiple times. I started walking down to the lunar subterrane when I was trying to go to the to the bottom of the lunar subterrane when I was trying to check the Murasam, the Muramana spot. There was just multiple times where I was tilted. I just need to know that I can reset. It's all good. Go in with a fresh head, I think is the biggest thing I need to do.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again for the race. This was a great seed, a great race. I know it's not the result you were hoping for, but your skills shine through, and it was a really great pleasure to be up here. Gonna remind chat, make sure you follow both these runners. Just fantastic racers of the game. And the restream team's pretty cool too. Scorian rolling this amazing seed. Hard Gamer, her first time tonight, handling the tracking, did a great job. And PeasantsOMFG, always a pleasure to be in the booth with you, sir. Actually, was this our first time doing comms together? I'm gonna have to go talk to a restream lead about that.
It is, Inven, and we will definitely have to do it again because this was a blast, my friend.
Yeah. So great night, everyone. Make sure you give everyone a follow. We're going to be heading over to the Pancras Night Dew match on Randomania Prime. No spoilers for this one, please. Enjoy the match. Make sure you catch Game 3 of this one Friday night. And PeasantsOMFG, I leave the last words to you, sir.
Yeah, like Inven said, Friday, 8 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you catch it. That'll be a fantastic Game 3 between these two runners, Peasants and Kohrek. Again, we will be going over to Randomania. You will get the bonk if you spoil, so don't spoil. You know, don't do that disservice to the community and yourself. But everybody, it's been a blast as always. Thank you for coming out and enjoying some amazing free enterprise between two amazing runners. And everyone remember, stay healthy, stay blessed, and y'all have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye now.
Night, y'all.